And g'day, fans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of DNA Reviews, where we give The Mandalorian the final episode of the season, the good old DNA once-over. Now, I don't know about you, Mr. Aaron, but it seems like 100 years ago since we saw the last episode, and it was only a week back. But it's been a long 7 sort of days, but here we are now, which is really cool.
I like giving it a week since it's sort of been screened, because I'm in the shop. I get to hear different people's opinions, and I can tell you this episode has split people down the middle. Some people loved it, and some people like, what was that about?
Well, exactly right. So we'll have to see through our own discussion what we thought, and as well as the people who are watching us currently. But there's a fair bit to cover off. And of course, the key thing is it's called The Return, which is particularly interesting because there was an episode, if you remember, in the Book of Boba Fett called The Return of the Mandalorian, which was a particularly good one. Now, as to whether this one matched up with that is anybody's guess, but we shall find out as we go along. And as always, there will be spoilers. I don't think anybody hasn't seen this show yet. I think everyone has. But just in case you haven't, or you've just been waiting to hang out just that little bit longer, then just be aware there will be spoilers. So it's the end of the season. It's all very good, very, very exciting. There's a lot to cover off. What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron? Should we just delve right into it?
Let's jump right into the living waters.
Very, very good. I like this from DJ. Already started off with the amazing Picard finale. Well, we may be discussing that next week in another show, but yes, if you compare the two shows side by side, it is a tad unbalanced in terms of which one was really good and which one was a tad iffy. Remembering, so before I go on, you cut you off, just remembering our aim is to sort of discuss the episode and just look at the things that worked and the things that didn't necessarily work. We're not here to just bag it or gush over it. We're just here to sort of analyze it. That's part of what we do. Sorry, to cut you off.
I was just going to say, Colin is here, the president of the Star Trek fan club, here to declare his victory, basically, I would say.
Cop that, if you don't mind, umpire. All right, so we continued on exactly from last week. Now, I had to lighten some of the shots up because they were quite dark. All of our heroes have done the bolt from what happened when their confrontation with all the dark troopers. And, of course, the first thing you do pick up on is the fact that IG-12 isn't with them, right? And I thought, okay, that's cool. They're all doing the big run. Now, of course, in the meantime, we catch up with Axe. Axe has just flown off at the top of the mountain. And I thought, oh, mate, how cool are these jetpacks? They can actually fly not into orbit practically, whereas a few episodes ago, they could only go like a few kilometers before they ran out of juice. Now this guy can just keep going up and up and up and up. Don't worry about oxygen. Don't worry about pressures. Don't worry about cold temperatures. He is good to go.
Well, we know that the Mandalorians, they can hold their breath, can't they?
Well, it's funny because it was established a few episodes ago that they can seal the helmet up and all the rest when Din got off onto Mandalore. So maybe Axe has done the same thing. He's done the big seal up, and I thought, how lucky is that? And he's just going up, and I'm thinking, hang on, dude, how far are you going to keep going with this? It's like,
I mean,
what can I say?
It's the physics of the Star Wars universe, because I mean, for us to launch a space shuttle, it takes, solid rocket fuel and booster rockets and all of that. But, the Mandalorians have invented a backpack that can just Junior Birdman rocketeer off the planet from underneath. Yeah, I thought that was amazing. But it is the Star Wars universe, so you've got to give it that, I guess.
Yeah, true. And I agree with Tracy. They clearly got their fuel mileage sorted out. So maybe they're running hybrids, half petrol, half electric. And that's why they can go further. So, not to worry about that. Anyway, I thought this was funny, right? There's a lot going on. So Bo is talking to Axe, who's flying up into the thing. Now, I don't know if you picked up on this. I picked up on it. And I thought, here we go. So what happens when you have way too much dialogue and not enough footage to cover it? What you do is you end up flipping the shots and just reusing them again, right? And you can tell because the one at the top is the correct one, but the one at the bottom is incorrect because the rangefinder is suddenly on this side of the helmet instead of the other side. And that dude there is that dude there. And I thought, the classic Hollywood get out of jail free card. Nobody's going to notice that we're flipping our shots. But good old Daggy, he noticed. Did you pick up on this?
I did this time, and only because I was looking for it, because of last week you picked up on that shot that I didn't see. And I did think, on a show with the budget of the Mandalorian, they'd do extra coverage just in case they needed some extra shots, but that must have been pretty tight on the budget.
Yeah, I reckon the editors are going, because maybe I think they filmed it all and edit the voiceovers later on, which is obviously what they do in this production. They go, you know what, we've clearly not got enough material. And it's like, how are we going to do this? So it's like, okay, Bo's leading the charge. She's looking this way. Now she's looking that way. And if it wasn't for the rangefinder on the helmet, you'd never know. But, of course, it's a dead set giveaway. So I love that. I like this from DJ. Yeah, chasing a dinosaur who stole your son. Yeah, there's not enough juice, but going into orbit, no, no problem at all. So, Tracy said it's a bit lazy. You know what? It is unbelievably common. in movies and TV shows. They do it on a regular basis. Battlestar Galactica was notorious for it, as we well know. And if it wasn't for the rangefinder, you'd never pick up on it. But in this case, it was very, very obvious. And as I said, most people didn't notice it. We picked up on it last week, or I did. And that's why I think, a lot of people may be a bit zoned into it this week, but normally you wouldn't pick up on it. So, Anyway.
It usually happens when they edit a show together and someone says, I don't understand what's happening. So they have to loop some dialogue and find some appropriate footage to put over the top. So probably this was cut together and they're like, this doesn't go from A to B properly. We need to put something in there.
It certainly helps that all your characters are wearing helmets. You can overdub any dialogue you want. So before we know, what was written was completely different, and they've had to change it later on. But it works. She's talking to Axe saying, the ships are on their way up and all this sort of thing. This is what the plan is. So she's making the plan up as she goes along, get the other ships to come down, leave the gauntlet thing, whatever it is, the big cruiser in space. So all that was happening pretty quickly. So, it worked for the sequence, and I've got no issues with it. Now, this is interesting. Some people picked up on this. So when Paz was fighting off all the Dark Troopers, it was implied that he killed them all. There were none left, right? But clearly there are stacks of dudes still running around. So you can ask yourself, what was the point of his sacrifice? Because in the end, it didn't achieve anything. I mean, sure, you may have held up the guy, so as in the Dark Trooper, so the heroes could get away, but the doors were shut anyway. So, and they were prepared to fight it out. So in the end, you can argue that Paz's sacrifice didn't serve a point. Did you see it that way?
I can make you see this from a more Disney point of view. Did the cash cow escape?
We'll get to the cash cow later on. Don't jump the gun, son. But yes. But anyway, so the thought of Paz after killing all these dudes, you're thinking, oh, well done, right? And of course, he gets killed by the Praetorian Guard. But that's it. They're all done. But these guys pop up everywhere and they go, well, that kind of didn't really achieve much.
The interesting story beat about that, out of all the Mandalorians, Paz was the only one we knew who had a son. So by killing him off, you've actually caused something that has repercussions. If it was Axe and Paz who had changed positions, then at the end of it, Paz could have come back down in the ship and met up with his son. But this way they've actually caused that generational thing where his son will now hate the Empire. I don't know if they did that on purpose or what that was though.
I like how Tracy's thinking, right? Remember, this show is about making money. I like that one. It did make my Paz Vizsla Lego minifig jump up and bang. But did you get and there's two variations, Tracy. You're going to be aware that you got the Paz Vizsla, he's like this high, and you got the variant which has the big Praetorian Guard laser beam stuck in the back of his neck. Love it. Very, very cool. All right, so Din, right? We saw him last week. He's being sent off to be debriefed, and there's only two guards, just two dudes, right? You think Gideon would have been a bit smarter than that, thinking this guy's a bit of a tough cookie. Don't just have two guards. And I love the fact, I do laugh, right? What's with all the lights? They got lights in the gauntlets. They got lights in the chest. They got lights over there. Why do these guys? There's so many freaking lights.
It's so if it's totally dark, the enemy have somewhere to pinpoint them and shoot them.
Unbelievable. It's a classic. I mean, it looks good, but you got to be asking yourself, why do you need it? What does that light do? What does that actually tell you? And if you actually look at the dude in particular, this guy here, he can't even see. Actually, it's on the top, isn't it? Yeah, so he can actually look at it if he wants to. So I don't see the point of it myself, but I got to laugh. What can I say? But it looks good, and Star Wars has always been lights. There are always lights everywhere, especially in New Hope. You see them all over the place.
Well, we're going to see some stuff that you've brought up about why there are only two. Gideon has played it really smart through the whole 3 series we've seen him in. And in this episode, he does a lot of really dumb things. And I don't know if it's because of his pride in what he's built here or whatever, but you are absolutely right. Why would you just have 2 of those guys taking the Mandalorian? And I will point out every time Gideon does something that brings about his own downfall, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of stupid decisions get made in this particular show. I like this, right? So he does break free, and as we've sort of seen before, right? Beskar will not burn, right? So this dude is just decided to cook good old Din in his suit, but he's not basing in his own juices. He's got no problems whatsoever. But his cape doesn't even catch fire, so it's clearly covered in some kind of fire retardant because he rolls away, and the cape is perfectly fine. I thought, you can't strip the guy of his cape because it covers the back part of the costume. So. I thought it was just something I picked up on, but it was a good fight. But clearly we saw how this was going to end up. But
I like what DJ has talking about with everyone having Beskar armor. It is that sort of John Wick thing where now they've got the Kevlar suits and can just put put their arm up, and if the bullets hit the suit, nothing happens. Having strong stuff like that doesn't create a better series. It actually detracts from it. I liked when Beskar was rare and only the Mandalorians kind of had it and it was special. Now everybody has it. It just like takes away from any threat because no one can shoot anyone with a laser. It's a bit of a plot point for me.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And as we discussed last week with the Dark Troopers, they've got a lot of gaps in the armor, so you can just shoot in the gaps, and that's how you'll kill them, not by shooting directly at them. But yeah, it does seem a bit pointless. Like, oh, you've got all this cool armor, yet dudes are still dying. If anything, they should be just standing there, bang, 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 and nothing's happening, just going tink. Yeah. But anyway, but I agree, it has sort of watered it down a little bit, and it's not as cool as it once was. People say, "Oh, you got Beskar armor," and go, "Yeah, whatever, dude. All these other guys have got them as well." It's like,
yeah, now there's like Imperial Beskar and Pure Beskar and Darksaber Beskar. I mean, it's like kryptonite and green and red and blue and all the different stuff they start to add to it, isn't it?
You go down to the local Mandalorian tailor store and they've got different fabric, different types of Beskar made by different manufacturers, and you go, "I'll have that one." So anyway. So Grogu IG-12 pops up. A lot of people said, "How the hell did he find Din in the first place?" I have to work on the view that he just used the Force, you know. So after the escape and all the Mandalorians ran left, IG-12 said, "I got to go and rescue my boss, my dad. I got to go right." And somehow or other, some back way. I mean, remember all the doors were shut. He's found Din, and I get that. What I found was interesting, and I'm going to bring this up again later on, is that he snuck up on this trooper, and no one hurt him. Right? I mean, that's a big suit. IG-12. Even as IG-11 wasn't a quiet character. It's not stealth mode. Nothing. No sound at all. Just appeared out of nowhere. But you know what? It kind of worked. You could see it coming. So, but yeah, if you want to know how Grogu found Din, it would have been using the Force. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was one of those things. Maybe he spelunked down the wall from the next level up or something.
You got to think about the spelunking, haven't you? Just because IG-11 was meant to be for spelunking. So, make of that what you want. I like that one. Beskar. It's supposed to be Beskar alloy. I like the sound of that. And I agree for Michael, the Beskar market has fallen through the floor. Yeah, exactly right. So it's a little bit everywhere. Now, I love this bit, right? Make of this what you will, right? This is from IG-12. Is it spray on Bacta because he thinks Din's injured? Or is it deodorant, like Link's Mandalore? You know, because you know the Mandalorians, they never wash their hair, and because they've always got their helmets on. It was a funny moment, and I thought, dude, if you're going to put spray on Beskar, he's got to take the helmet off. He can't have it while he's got the helmet on. So I kind of didn't get that.
It's just I didn't really get that either. It's just one of those things they add from time to time. That's why I think, like I said, maybe they had to go back and loop stuff to explain the story because it seemed very rushed, but at the same time, it all seemed to wind up in the first 15 minutes. I've got to say, when I saw the running time before I even started and it was 39 minutes, I thought, they can't wrap everything up in 39 minutes. And I was like, wow, they have, you know. So
yeah, it's a dead giveaway, isn't it? When you look at and to compare shows, so yeah, right, for this one it was like 39 or 43 minutes. You go, well, that's really short for a finale, whereas the finale of Picard went for over an hour, and you go, oh, okay, what does that tell you? So, and as you're watching the episode and you're seeing silly stuff like this and the things with R5D4 coming up, and you go, we're wasting a lot of time on things that don't need to have time wasted on them. Does that mean we're going to just rush it at the end? And maybe that sort of happened. I like this one from DJ. He assumed that the colors of the Beskar represented the type that was pure or, as mentioned, alloy or whatever. No, they paint them. And that's covered off in Rebels because Sabine paints her own uniform. So yeah, I don't think it's a kind of thing where just because it's one product of Beskar, it is automatically that color. And like what's his name? Din has it all chrome, and I think that's purely by choice. If you wanted to spray paint it different colors, you would. But anyway, not to worry. Very cool.
So I do actually think this episode would have worked better as just two parts, like the last two parts with the finale, because then in the break between episodes, you wouldn't have been able to think about what was going to happen this episode, and then it just massively lets you down. It would have all just flowed through and ended. So that was one of the things I wanted to bring up as well.
Yep, cool. And Tracy's, that painted Ragdoll's helmet. So yeah, it's just, they obviously get the spray paint because in the end, if they all looked exactly the same, nobody would know who was who. So they paint them in. It's an individual thing, which is fair enough too. So, but as we said, they do sometimes look like the Wiggles. So all right, so Grogu's on the scene looking after Din. All right, those two are together now. It's all good and groovy. What can we say? Now, this part I thought was interesting, right? So all the Mandalorian guys all jetpack out of the thing, out of the base. And the thing is, if these jetpacks are so cool, why doesn't everyone have one of these in the galaxy? Why is it just the Mandalorians, in this case, some of the Imperials, How come there's no one out there saying, you know what, I'm going to make my own version of that and market it? In our real world, the moment somebody builds something that's really cool, it gets copied by somebody else straight away. It doesn't matter if it's patented or just make a few changes, but it's not like there's one brand of microwave oven in the entire planet, one brand of refrigerator, one brand of a dishwasher. There's millions of them, right? And
Yeah.
because the idea is it allows you to sort of like different people build things for different markets. So why can't there be jetpacks everywhere? So instead of flying around in speeders and whatever else, people just wear jetpacks all the time. I don't get that. So what
The
are your thoughts?
Mandalorians must have really good patent lawyers or something. But
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
we can see in Star Wars that even Finn is surprised in the Rise of Skywalker when the stormtrooper flies, and he's like, "These things fly now." But you can see back in this time that they were already doing that technology.
Yeah, because it looks from what we've seen in things like Return of the Jedi, when Boba Fett goes from the sail barge to the skiff to the sail barge to the skiff, right? It's a short trip just from there to there, right? In this show, they're flying everywhere, right? And it looks good and it works. And you think, mate, if that transportation technology is that cool, mate, they should be everywhere. Everybody should be selling them.
Do
So
you know? Do you
yeah.
know if everything could fly, you'd put them in R5 units, rocket boosters, or something too, wouldn't you?
Indeedy doody didy, and we'll cover that off a bit later on. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, but it did look good, right? And everybody's flying around everywhere. Yay, team, party, party, party. Now, remember last week we said when you see the TIE interceptors in the base, they're pointing downwards, right?
Yeah.
And I thought normally, like we saw in Andor, they point forwards, right? We saw in the TIE fighters, they point forwards, you jump in, you just fly away, right? And these guys are pointing downwards. And I go, okay, what's the deal with that? And I thought, mate, so they actually drop, go horizontal, and then fly out and go, mate, that is an accident just waiting to happen. And I haven't got the shot of it. But when you see the reverse angle of this, they barely just missed the floor. It's like,
Yeah.
geez, you don't want Fred in there to be going, oh, hang on, what's this?
I'm pretty sure one of the production team or the artists must have said, "Oh, do you know what would look cool if they were all hanging from the roof like bats? Because then they'd look more evil." And so they think about the image of how it looks rather than how practical it would actually be to start a ship like that.
Well, the problem is that when you get in the ship, you're already facing downwards, right? So as the pilot, gravity's pushing you to the front windscreen and you've got to somehow suck yourself back into the seat, right? So logically, that makes no sense whatsoever. So you open the hatch, you jump in, and you go, oh my God, the seat's there. And I've got to try and push it. It looked good, but it was unbelievably stupid. But anyway, what the hell? You know, I don't know why they just couldn't get him to face horizontally.
That could actually be the logo for Disney Plus. It looks good, but it's actually unbelievably stupid.
Yeah, I like I like that. And I like that from Daniel. Yeah, the way Interceptors launched from one of the Batwing. Yeah, exactly right. But I tell you what, it would have just taken one guy to crash, and the whole lot would have been complete. And they were really, really close to crashing. Regarding the jetpacks, DJ said about why Bo-Katan and Din. You've got to get used to saying Din. Can't say Mando because there's millions of Mandos now. Bail out of the ship like we saw in the previous episode. They could have. They just got out of the ship and just sail over to where the guys were hanging out. That would have made for a very, very short episode.
Yeah.
But a logical one. So I don't know. Don't worry about it. You have to sort of build a bridge, I think, in this instance, and see what happens. See what could happen with ONHS compliance. Yeah, well, as we know, the Imperial Empire is not at all good for that, and with their chasms and a lack of railings. All right.
I know. So anyone could have lost a leg over that.
They could have indeed. All right. Very good. All right. With that in mind, we get to see good old Gideon, right? He's standing there doing his Darth Vader fanboy impersonation. I love the size of the map, right? This big ass map. And it goes to show how big the base really, really is. Yet for whatever reason, only IG-12 and Din appear in it. In this case, they're right in those dots right there, right? And I think we get in the close-up. Now, I love the fact that, one, you got to ask, how is it that he's tracking these guys? And I love the fact that Grogu is the small green one at the back, right? They're not even two exactly the same dots. You can clearly see which character is which. How does that work? The system's so good, it can actually determine who is who.
Well, I'm telling you now, we're a toy shop and we have cameras in, so I'm pretty sure the Imperials would have something better than security cameras, so I can buy that. I don't know why they have the two different color dots. Usually in Star Wars, red is bad and green is good. But this is where I kind of thought, he's acting really stupid. I don't know if it's hubris or anything. They actually say, should we go and intercept them? And what does he say, Dags?
No, I'll do it myself.
And what are the consequences of that, Dags?
Yeah, we'll discuss that in a few ticks, actually. So sit tight, old son. But yes, I do like the fact that not only is Grogu a green dot, but he's actually a smaller dot. Remembering he's in IG-12, so he should theoretically be exactly the same size as Din behind that. And I thought that's clearly designed for the audience and for the little kids watching the show to go, oh, there's Grogu right there. So I thought that was
Well,
very, very funny.
Gideon was either thinking that's either Grogu or Kermit the Frog. He knew it was one or the other.
I love it. Yep. Was there a tracker put on Grogu when they had him? Oh, I don't know. That could have been a long time ago, but there shouldn't be one on Din. Either way, it doesn't. It works, but it's kind of stupid at the same time. I know it's kind of. I know we sort of pick on these things a little bit, but it is kind of funny looking at things that kind of work and kind of don't work at the same time. Yes. Anyway, in the interim, we're going to zip off to good old R5D4. Now, if my first question was, why is it even there in the first place? Because remember, this mission was to just look at Mandalore, check it out, and see if it's ready for resettlement, right? So for whatever reason, they brought him along. Okay, you would have thought by now they would have sent him back to Palimoto, but he's still around. And I thought, okay, R5D4 is there. Yeah, good stuff. And I thought that was interesting. So we'll get back to R5D4 a little bit later on because I like this where he's beeping and carrying on. Din says, sorry, I don't speak binary. I mean, who apologizes to a droid? You think Din, who dislikes droids, wouldn't even think of saying that. He should be saying, dude, learn to speak English, you freaking idiot. And, of course, IG-12 speaks in effectively binary. Yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah.
What was that all about, dude?
I don't know. I guess it's one of those things that, I guess, some humans instantly can talk binary. We've seen Rey does it and Luke does it. I don't know why they made that a plot point. I did think it had come back and it didn't.
Well, it's kind of stupid because when they landed on Mandalore a few episodes ago and R5 went around the corner and he's talking, he's like, he would have said back then, I don't speak binary. Now he brings it up again. It was just like, okay, dude, we kind of get it. You don't understand it. But why are you mentioning it now? It just seemed weird. So, and the fact he said sorry, why is he apologizing? It's like, oh, yeah. So
maybe there's going to be a plot point next season where he has to do something with load lifters or moisture evaporators and he can't do it because he doesn't speak binary. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. And you are right. We've covered this off previously in last week's episode. I think it was last week's episode. It is not called it's called Galactic Basic Air. Sorry, Dan, you're behind the 8 ball, son. We've already covered that off in a previous episode. Very, very good. And have to be politically correct. Yeah, you're right. In an adult's version, he would have said, R5, you're a complete effing tool. Learn to speak basic. I don't get it. Yeah. You think you could program Astromex to speak, couldn't you? So it can't be that damn hard.
That is actually a brilliant thing right there. Why have they never programmed Astromex to talk English?
I know. I don't get it. Maybe because they're not meant to actually interact with people. Maybe they're just designed to be maintenance droids on ships and not talk. They just get information from a central computer, so to speak, and they go off and do their thing, and they don't interact with humans. Beings and now they do. So
you can't get more basic than an R2 unit. You would think they'd teach them basic. Maybe it is one of those Windows Apple thing where way back when they were designing droids, one lot got to speak one language and one lot got the other, and that's just how it's been. And the poor R2 units don't get basic.
Yeah, I love it. I don't get it. DJ said about the fact that he was a Republic spy being in inverted commas. And he gave away the Mandalorian covert. That's like you can't kill him off. The thing is, if you had like the Mandalorians beating the bejesus out of R5, the children of watching the show, the kids, they'd be crying their eyes out because they will love him. And of course, they love him a lot because of what happens here. Now, of course, we get reminded that R2 and now R5 units have actually got boosters, right? The convenient boosters that sometimes are there and sometimes aren't. He could have used these on Mandalore when he was flying around. And what this is the classic Hollywood time-saving maneuver. We need the droid in there fast so he can be a part of a plot point. And I did like the fact that was really well done. And, of course, he gets to the edge of the ledge and he starts freaking out. And it's like, dude, how can you be freaked out by the height? You've just flown. It's like a seagull, afraid of heights. It's like, what was the deal with that?
Maybe he'd just run out of all his fuel after that. One massive booster and that was it or something. I don't know.
Well, it doesn't work because he flies out again later on. So, but I thought if you've just flown in this massive chasm, you've landed, you go to the edge and you start freaking out over what's below you. You go, but dude, you just flew in. It looked good. It was cute. But when you analyze it, you go, hang on, there's something really cockeyed going on here. So,
yeah.
Oh, dear. Anyway, so very good. Now, it looked good. Now, I don't know if you remember this. There was a similar scene in R2-D2 in Revenge of the Sith. It was very, very cute having R5 stick his head around. And clearly, he's the new droid of choice for these shows. And, of course, the mouse droids all turn up with their police lights. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And, of course, when he leaves, he just flies off. You don't see him again. So we actually don't know if he escapes or he survives or he didn't get blown up in the explosion. He just does not appear anywhere ever again in the rest of the show. So,
Well,
but anyway, the mouse droid thing was kind of cute. How did you find all this, dude?
Well, for a season finale, this is like embarrassing to say. That was probably my favorite scene in it because I didn't expect it and just made me laugh. But I did think it was cute. It was for kids, and it did make me chuckle with R4 getting out again. Can you just imagine? He's like, I've made it, and then a capital ship just lands straight on top of it.
That would be pretty funny, and it was kind of cute. The mouse droids all come around and they're just bashing it because they've got nothing else they can do. Just go bash. Yeah, it was cute, and I like that. Sorry, Michael said they just tried to extend the episode because they probably thought, oh, yeah, we've got an episode that runs for like 17 minutes. That's kind of a bit short. We need to make it a bit longer. Sorry, dude, catch off.
What I thought was going to happen and why I thought it was funny, the one mouse droid sees him, it goes away, and then I thought it was going to come back with all the Death Troopers. But because it just comes back with more mouse droids, that's funny. That's good comedy.
Yeah, you would have thought the mouse droid had the ability to communicate back to the base going, I've got this shifty dude here, send some other dudes to come and take him out. Yeah, instead of running away, calling his mates. And of course, there's a whole story as to when the guy goes, as in the mouse droid goes around the corner, are all the other droids are sitting there, right, in the car park. It's like Chadstone Shopping Centre at Christmas time. And he goes, and they all come running back.
Well, Greg said what a mouse droid's meant to do, and I thought they were like running info from person to person in one of the books. That was all they did. They were sort of manual information that they didn't want going through the electronic system. But I could be wrong on that.
Yeah,
Moneybags probably knows.
So. Yeah, I would have worked on the view that they are like couriers, and like on the Death Star, it was just because you got to remember digital transmissions didn't sort of exist then, so it would be just a way of couriering things from one place to another. It's like the equivalent of the old tea lady, or even in Andor, we saw the dude with the postal service thing going on. It's just a quick way of getting stuff around. It's just pop it in the droid and it runs off, and away we go. So
there you go. Mouse droids only speak binary, so the troopers didn't understand.
Oh, absolutely love it. And Tracy said Disney has R5s in their build your own droid here and in Florida. So yes, very good fun. Anyway, good stuff. I like it. Yeah, couriers of what? Can you pop a sandwich of them? Well, yeah, I would imagine it's data sticks, actually. So we've seen that they use data sticks in the Star Wars universe, the galaxy far, far away. It's probably those. Yeah. Make of that what you will. So yeah, as we said, yeah, couriers between officers. That's what I said. So good stuff. As to why they've got the police lights on top, make of that what you will. All right. Anyway,
for comedy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And yeah, and you are right. Yeah, you got all R5 he's quaking in his stylish yet affordable boots when they turn up. Very good. All right. So they're like the room and they're just vacuuming. Well, you would modify them, have different versions. They can do different things. You go just put brushes on the bottom of one and spray jets on the bottom of another, and the vacuum cleaner on the bottom of another. So yes, very good. All right. So you don't trip over them. Yeah, well, they are a bit of a tripping hazard, So we're overthinking this, kids. Let's move on. All right, so the important part, right? All of the ties are coming up and our heroes have got to go down. And I thought this was actually quite clever, right? The logic of this actually works, right? So our heroes and their ships go downwards in the clouds and the TIE fighters come up. And because of all the static electricity and all the communication problems, none of them can see each other. The thing that's interesting is they go down, as in these guys go down, the TIEs come up almost in the same spot. You would have thought there must be some unbelievably close moments in the clouds or collisions, because it's not like our heroes went down here and the bad guys turned up like 5 kilometers away. They're almost on top of each other. So, but yeah, it was a good moment and it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I did think it was incredibly lucky that neither of them, like you said, neither hit each other and they didn't get what the other person's sort of plan was going to be, that just because of the static and everything. I thought that was luck. Did you think that Axe was going to be a traitor?
Well, that's what I brought up here. So it seems so obvious. He lands on the ship, kicks everybody off. Even the guy who's walking out the door gives him a last look before he puts his helmet on. And I thought, because remember last week's episode was called Spies, and we don't know who the second. We were taking guesses. Is it the armor? Is it Axe or whatever? And I was thinking, if he says, hey, Gideon, hey, Moff, guess what, sir? I've got the ship. It's under my control. I thought that would be awesome. That would be really cool. And he didn't. And I was like, there's a missed opportunity.
Do you know what? It would have been awesome because neither of us thought that. And it makes sense because he had the rivalry with Bo-Katan and he was begrudgingly fighting and not fighting the other group of Mandalorians. And I was like, of course, he was right there and it makes perfect sense. And then they didn't. So I was like, like you, bit of a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, I think it was they put that in the too hard basket, and I thought, oh, okay, if he gets control of the ship, what do we do now? It would have been a nice touch, but one thing that this episode has done, it is clearly catered for a younger market, and they've kept everything unbelievably simple, so kids can just figure it out really fast. They didn't add in twists that people going, mate, now I have to really think about what's happening. They kept it very, very basic, very simple, and of course that's to the detriment of the story. Because where you can put in twists that make the audience go, oh, that is awesome. How are they going to deal with this? They took all that out. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why it kind of didn't work as well as it should have. With that in mind, now this is a bit later on, so I've had to rearrange some of the slides just to make it a bit more easy to watch. I thought with Axe, at the very least, he should have sacrificed or have had to die for whatever reason. So his jetpack has been destroyed. He can't get out the window, even though when the way he got out the window was really good. Because I thought, he and Paz had their big bash up on the ship, I think it was last week. Paz is already dead. And I thought, what if Axe had to sacrifice himself as well for this story? I reckon that would have been great, but they didn't. He escapes. And that was a bit a missed opportunity there as well. What do you reckon?
Well, I thought so too. I thought it was a bit of a cop-out. I would have liked to him try and blast out the windows, and it didn't happen, because I do think it would be harder to blast the windows out of a ship than that. But I don't know. It was very reminiscent of the crash in episode 2, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, he escaped with nothing. And I thought the whole thing, they built up to a climax last week, and then it didn't really pay off this week. It was a bit of a disappointment. We didn't see a massive star battle in space or anything like that. And then we saw a crash, which was kind of okay, but it wasn't anything as dramatic as I thought we were going to get.
I like this. We're blokes now. I feel like Axe's escape was a dig at the Last Jedi. I know I didn't see that at all. Did you? I didn't put those two and two together on that one.
No, I didn't get that either.
Cool, no worries. And even Blake, who's my next door neighbour, who's probably like, oh, excited about the fact that he's on the show at the moment, was Axe going to get destroyed by the bombers, and it turned out he didn't. That would have been different. I was waiting for something interesting to happen, and I thought the ship was going to get destroyed. And I thought, once again, Axe gets sacrificed, right? He saved everybody. He's done what he needed to do, right? Everybody's off. The other ships are on the surface. It is all good. And he just takes one for the team. And it's like, okay, later on they'll go, okay. And if anything, they're going to do a statue on Mandalore. Is Paz and Axe playing chess? Make a statue of that. The last time they hung it, all missed out. So,
well, the other thing, I don't think we have seen TIE bombers taking out a capital ship before, which I was really disappointed, because when he says go with the TIE interceptors and the TIE bombers, I always equate the TIE bombers with planetary bombardment. And I was thinking, oh, this is going to be really cool to see, because we've seen the Last Jedi where you have the rebel bombers kind of thing, but TIE bombers are a totally different beast. So I was looking forward to see that, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I think it would have been funny. All the ships get into space, and they go, "Where's the rest of the fleet?" It's just the one big capital ship. Where are the rest? Not realizing they've already flown down below. And I thought they would have been going, "Why are they sending so many of us? 2 of us could have done the job here." Anyway, not to worry.
Yeah.
So we follow what's going on with Din, right? And this is just almost quite comical, right? Now, I don't know if you picked up on this. I certainly did. Is like it's video game level up time. As you go through all the stages, you get more weapons and you progress through the stages. And good old Din, I tell you what, isn't he the toughest cat in town? So, and he's getting, of course, with R5, getting him to open up the shields between sections, and the other guys clearly can't do that. Yeah. How did you find this, dude?
I hated it. I actually thought those cells that they were in don't make any sense. The fact that they could only fight him 1 or 2 at a time, and then it was very clumsy fighting compared to some of the hand-to-hand combat we've seen before. And the other thing, it does the Temple of Akator thing where they've just got people sitting in the walls all day waiting for something to happen. I thought last series, if they were robots, okay, you understand it. Or maybe if they're clones, but I think they're just general stormtroopers. So you get stationed to go in there, sit in a cube, for your 8-hour shift or whatever. I just thought, oh, this is the strange sort of credibility with me.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough one, eh? And as I've said here, I mean, his hand-to-hand combat skills were outstanding. He was channeling his inner John Wick. You just couldn't put a mark on the guy, could you? So,
when you get a character that's so indestructible, they're just going to win. It just makes the whole thing a bit boring. I thought, did you like this scene?
No, not particularly. No, I didn't know where it was going. It's just It was a
Yeah,
bit
they were
silly.
obviously trying to make everyone think episode one with the power things that open and close, but they were totally different. They were a force field or something. It just didn't work for me. I don't know what they were thinking really.
DJ said it was a bit naff. I love that one. It's Phil gave the stunt guy something to do. And yeah, clearly it was not Pedro Pascal in that suit doing what he was doing. Yeah, and it was trying to, as Daniel said, it's trying to emulate what happens in Phantom Menace with Obi-Wan waiting to get Maul. But the thing was, Maul was at least a credible threat. And of course, he kills one of the two guys. So it's not exactly apples for apples, but and he goes, open the next level, and all the rest of them go, oh yeah, it looked good. Once again, they kept it very simple, and he's only fighting two guys at a time, and every time he's grabbing extra weapons, and away he goes. He is just too cool for school, that Mr. Din. What can I say, eh?
Open the next level.
And even level. Blake has said about the Phantom Menace connection. Yeah.
Eat the mushroom for the power up, so you're super powered for the next one, kind of thing. I just thought it was very video game.
Yeah, exactly right. So they may have been inspired by the whole Phantom Menace thing, but in the Phantom Menace, Maul at least did kill Qui-Gon. I thought this was interesting, right? One, I thought it was a little too easy, but who knew there were chasms on this thing? So those guys are standing on the edge, right? They stand in these little spots here, and I thought, mate, if they take a step to just to jump to the left, they're channeling their inner Rocky Horror Picture Show. They're going to go, wow. What's the deal with that?
I know. I thought the whole thing did not make sense the way the base was built. It's one of those. They might have been doing it that way to be cool or a cool level on a video game, but it's just unrealistic.
Either that, or as you said, right, they get the guys to stand there and they're just looking at each other, not doing anything, right? And Moff's doing, Gideon's doing this thing, and they go, the reason why we're putting you here on this really, really narrow platform is because if you fall asleep at any point during your 8-hour shift, and imagine you're like one guy looking straight ahead there, and you see a dude fall off way over there, and you go, whoop, he's gone. We need a replacement. Dear. It's just kind of funny. So anyway, not to worry. And you're right, DJ. We don't think Pedro was in most of the series at all, except for his voiceover work. So I think we discussed that last week as well. Very good. Set director thought it looked good, and it did look good, and it is sort of typical for the Imperial sort of setup. But you would be, imagine saying, that's my shift. I'm standing on this thing. I'm crapping myself because if I just happen to shuffle, I could go off. Excuse me. Anytime. So they have the jetpacks. I don't know. Maybe they do. So if they do fall off, they can just fly back up again. So don't know.
Yeah, he does. Because did he steal a jetpack off of one of those guys?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, he did. Yeah. Okay, so maybe that's how they get out of jail free card. So very good. All right, so we get to the important point. There's a lot of rubbishy stuff going on, and that's this bit. So it's the much heralded, as I've said there, the force-sensitive Gideon clones, right? I think we discussed in a previous episode that Gideon's whole thing was trying to make clones of himself that were different and improved from him. I think we discussed that last week, right?
Yeah.
So we have confirmed it was not Gideon clones in the Dark Trooper suits that we saw last week. They were just regular dudes. And I was going, okay, that was a letdown because he said these things have got him in them, right? Now, it turns out they don't have him in them at all. The Gideon clones are here. And as you pointed out, and I think everybody's picked up on that, Gideon must be aware that these guys are heading towards this room, and he lets them in there. And I was like, dude, what is the deal with that? So that's just bad writing. I think the writers thought, oh, we can't have Gideon interrupting him just yet. He's got to go and do his thing. So Gideon clones, mate.
Well, it opens up a whole can of story points for me. Last week, you were absolutely right. When they asked him what's inside the troopers, he said every one of them has me inside or something like that. And then, no, they're just stormtroopers. So that was a bit weird. Now we don't know that clones are involved. He does say you've destroyed them all before they drew their first breath. I would not be surprised if next season, if he comes back, he's like, haha, you just destroyed a clone, you idiot, or something like that.
Well, it's an interesting point. So Tracy's asked, what was the age of the clones? And if you're working on the view that they did what they did with the Kaminoanian sort of clones, they had growth accelerants. I said last week inhibitors, had the wrong word. It was accelerants. Don't really know. It wasn't. Somebody had pointed out, and I did like this. This guy at least opens his eyes, right? This is the moment where he scares Grogu. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. If this guy survived, right, is that possible? There's another question. Would the Gideon clones have listened to Gideon Prime? Right, because remember they're all force sensitive and stronger than he is, or is he sort of programmed them to listen to him and him only? And the third point is what you said: is the Gideon we've been dealing with this entire time a clone of the real one? And what's the tip off for that? As some people have noticed, he doesn't have the mustache. Right?
Yeah.
make of that what you will. So is our Gideon a fake Gideon, which of course is not force sensitive? You would have done something in this episode. So there's a fair few questions that come out of it. So
Well,
yeah.
we talked about it last week where you're talking about would they obey? If he's making better clones, surely the first one and the strongest one, if they've got the ambition of him, would take over. But we don't know. We don't know if it's the same process as the clone troopers, or if the other process is you get like a adult clone. With this series, we've only seen sort of adult clones. We haven't seen young clones that have been growth accelerated, but we just don't know. I guess they haven't given us the background. Interesting concept, totally underwritten and mishandled, I thought.
And I think everybody thought there'd be thousands of them, and he's only just got like a dozen. There you go. DJ said you can't have this massive concept at the last minute with these bad. It's writing. Yeah. It was a bit of a late thing to add in. It would have looked really cool early on in the season if suddenly you're seeing Gideon clones popping out. Would have been a lot harder for the writers to deal with. Daniel said it's very similar to what they did with Stargate SG-1. And Blake said, sorry, hang on. And Gideon seemed so angry that they destroyed the clones, yet he let them walk right in. And that's the issue. Surely he would have been aware that he's like, oh my God, they're heading towards the clone factory. Oh, we're going to do something about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Why, if he was so advanced with clones, didn't he let a clone of himself die and take all the heat off of him? You know, they go to that shuttle and they find a dead Gideon and they're like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah. So it seemed, I agree with what DJ said earlier. It's very, very lazy writing. And what's even worse is that didn't just go straight over to the console and there's a button effectively that says destroy everything. And off she goes. And I thought, Gideon must be going, yeah, I kind of didn't see that one coming. I was like, oh, dude, how freaking stupid are you? So,
well, the only thing I thought about that is maybe Gideon thought, oh, maybe if they do go a bit rogue, he does have a button that destroys, like it actually blows up from the inside. So it had to be a design thing. It isn't like, oh, we did this and shorted it out. They pressed the red button and they all exploded from the inside. So maybe he wasn't trusting enough and was expecting a clone coup.
I don't know. I would have thought if you're going to produce clones, because clearly he thought about it, he would have put something in their head. It's his own version of an inhibitor chip, right? Yeah. Which the clones obviously had. That's why they acted on Order 66 to stop them from turning against him, because they'd be stronger, force sensitive, and they'd be programmed to take orders from him and nobody else. That would make logical sense, right? So, but we didn't get to see them. They didn't get to do anything. Whether there's clones stashed somewhere else seems unlikely. It was sort of introduced and removed really quickly. Yet it does confirm this is one of the reasons why Gideon was chasing Grogu's blood from way back when, because he wanted the midichlorians to make the clones force sensitive. We kind of figured all that out. We just thought it was in the Dark Troopers, and it wasn't. These guys are still in the vats, and as he says, they haven't even drawn their first breath yet. And I go, oh, dude.
And the thing that again, I agree with DJ, bad writing, shouldn't be us on a podcast explaining the plot points. It should all be there for everyone to pick up in the finale and put the jigsaw together themselves.
I agree with you. If the series was more fan orientated, remember, and I've said this multiple times, it's catering to the public as well, right? It has to cater for the public because that's where the money comes from. If the show was more fan orientated, they may have taken more risks and done more adult and dark things with it. But they've deliberately kept it simple. Oh my God, clones of Gideon. That's really bad. Din blows them up. That's really good. Move on to the next scene. And it's just like, but it's for the rest of us who's sitting there just groaning and going, oh, what a letdown. So anyway, not to worry. All right. So you're going to love this one right now. Okay. This whole season, as we've said, has been copying things from other movies. I saw this straight away and it was cute that they put it in, but I saw it straight away and I go, oh my God, I've seen this before. And, of course, as I said, they've kind of not ripped off, but copied ideas from a lot of movies. And, of course, this was from Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, the Genesis Cave.
Yeah. So I think we were joking, can I cook or can I cook kind of thing when we were talking about it. But it was every one of these has had references to other movies. Sometimes I think they're cool nods. Sometimes I think it's actually been to the detriment of the episode because they've dwelled on it too much. But yeah, when you pointed it out, I'm like, it's the Genesis Cave.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the thing about the Genesis Cave is the whole planet is dead, but they've created this one little cave that is completely full of life and water and food and all this sort of stuff. And effectively, what we're seeing here is like that Mandalorian's been destroyed, but there's Mandalore has been destroyed. But this one area is all full of life and lush and whatever else. So that's why you can draw the parallels. They could have tied this to more to the later films. Gideon is doing Force clone stuff data were factored against what Palpatine is doing decades later. One tied to that. Well, as we discussed last week, because Gideon does not appear in the sequel trilogy, right? He must have got knocked off somewhere before then, right? That's what we said. It's like, well, he doesn't show up anywhere. He's not like an antagonist. He's not even in the background. So whatever he's doing isn't going to work. And of course, at the end of this episode, we discovered that there's always room for putting in extra clones and things later on. But in the long term, his plan, whatever it is, can't succeed. So
I would have probably rather found Thrawn's galaxy gun project rather than clones again or something like that. So,
all right, this is an absolute bull terror, right? Right, you're right, Dags. I ripped off. I saw this and I couldn't. Now this goes to show how pathetically nerdy I am, right? I saw this shot, right? And I go, oh my God, it's the top-down shot of two ships flying side by side over a planet. What is this ripped from directly? Battlestar Galactica. I couldn't believe that I picked up on that.
Yeah, well, I guess it's one of those, there's only so many ways you can film above, but they even
that
do look
is
like
bullshit, dude. It is a direct rip-off of the two Vipers flying over Carolon. I could not believe it when I saw that, and I thought, and I checked it up, and I was right, and I thought, holy moly, I don't know if anybody else on this entire planet, even you didn't pick up on this. So
no.
How pathetic am I, dude?
Well, they've done so much with this season, I totally could believe it. So I don't know if the writers or the visual effects guys were having fun with it and did something like that, but it has just been loaded with nods to other science fiction, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm only being facetious. I mean, it was no big deal, but it was just shocked that I saw it, shocked that I recognized it, and then I was like, and then I realized I was right, and I go, oh my God, I can't believe I've done that. So very cool. All right, so throughout this entire episode, we have been missing one key character, and I thought, okay, remember the spies thing. Who's the spy? Well, clearly Axe isn't a spy, right? Who's left? It's got to be the armorer, but no, she pops back up, right? After what I class as a conspicuous absence, and she's returned to join the fight. So from the spies episode last week, there was effectively no spies that we thought could have been spies. So anyway, make of that what you will.
Maybe it was R5D4 was the spy all along.
Maybe, as DJ mentioned earlier on. There we go. I like that. Yeah, Frank, nobody was meant to. I spotted it immediately, and I checked it. Like, oh my God, what are the chances? So, how cool am I in a really kind of dorky and depressing and embarrassing way? So there you go. Very good, DJ. So I will say again. Remember when Star Wars did shots that were so iconic and amazing that other things ripped them off, not the other way around. Yeah, well, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Everybody was emulating Star Wars, especially from A New Hope back in the 70s, and everybody copied that. The long ship passing over the top. That was covered off in Spaceballs, which was a parody. Star Crash, I think even the Humanoid, and probably a number of others. And now everybody, Star Wars is copying everybody else. Good point. I like that one. All right. So you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
All right. Okay. So this must have been one of those absolute writer's nightmares. They say, guess what we want? We want a big-ass battle where everybody's flying around. It's a visual effects and a budgeting nightmare. Right? Our good guys are flying around. The bad guys are flying around. And you'll be going, oh, my God, that is going to be a pain in the ass to produce. But don't worry, fans, because none of the good guys in this entire episode, including Axe, as we saw earlier, none of our heroes, as in the proper heroes, cark it. And I thought when they planned this, they must be sitting there thinking, oh, my God, this is going to be so hard to do. It's going to cost so much money because it's not easy to have these guys flying around everywhere. Sure, it looked good. There's a lot going on. It was a bit of an overload, thinking, what the hell's happening? But for a TV show, I mean, I applaud them for doing it, but it was a fair bit to take in.
I actually thought it was disappointing. I actually thought it was directed badly. I actually thought there should have been the Jedi ending with a space battle happening above, the troops fighting each other, in this with the backpacks, and then the main characters having a fight at the bottom. But when they did it, a lot of the time you saw it in the background and they were sort of buzzing around each other like flies. I would have loved if they fixed the camera on Katie Sackhoff's shoulder and you just saw her going sideways with the Darksaber and you just saw her mow through the Death Troopers and them falling apart and stuff like that. I just thought it was very disappointing in the way it was shot. From my point of view, it was an exciting scene, but I could have seen it directed better, I thought, in my head.
No, fair enough too. I mean, there's a lot to take in. Once again, probably on a big screen, it would have been very, very cool, but it was very fast. It was like you would have been going like vertigo, and not vertigo, motion sickness. There's just all this
Yeah.
constant stuff going on. But it's like I think it's someone's idea of saying, well, instead of having physical ships against other ships, it's people against other people in jetpacks, whatever.
I
So,
thought, look,
yeah,
I thought it was good. I did think when there was a lot of shots where you saw them fighting in the background where it just didn't
yeah.
look like they had any weight to the swarm that was sort of flying around. And I tell you, it was happening so fast. How would you even pick your target when you're going through? You'd see something move and it's gone by you by the time you have time to react.
It's called the spray and pray. You just shoot everywhere. I hope you hit something. But I give him A for effort for giving in the bill. So there you go.
Yeah.
And Daniel said, yeah, it was good on a similar screen. Yeah, so that's how modern shows are made now, fast. And even if you can't tell anything, your brain picks up little bits here and there, and you just piece it together in your mind, even though you got no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
In the interim, we get on the ground bit, right? So Gideon, as we've said, is a bit miffed that all of his clones have been destroyed. And of course, dude, you kind of let him destroy them, which is kind of stupid. Now, I've had to rearrange the shots a little bit, so just be aware of that. I did like this. Someone else has picked up on this. That, what do you reckon, separated at birth? You reckon Gideon looks like Emperor Zurg from Toy Story?
I didn't pick that up. Maybe there's so much thrown into this episode that there is a passing resemblance there, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly right. The old George Lucas, perfect, do it again, fast, more intense. Yeah, exactly right. That's what the episode was like, wasn't it? I like this. Now, Gideon's armor seems to be mech enhanced now, so he's a lot stronger than he is normally. And this shot actually emulates what happened in the last episode of the last season when the Death Trooper held Din around the neck, which I thought was interesting. So it made the combat a little bit more suspenseful, even though we know how these things are going to turn out. You think at that point there, Gideon would just go snap his neck, but nah, of course, that's never going to happen. And of course, as we said, he's a bit of a Darth Vader fanboy, so he's going to do what he can to emulate what the old famous Sith Lord once used to do with holding people up in the air with one arm and all this sort of bizzo. Yeah, it was kind of good, kind of worked.
Not only that,
and once again, for children watching the show, they would have said, good guy here on the left, bad guy on the right. Oh my God, this is really scary. So even if it's not practical.
Yeah. Did you notice when they put his helmet on, they switched the voice to Darth? I don't know if you noticed.
It's all good,
echo.
Yeah. So, what he needed was the breathing. So what it needed to do is he has to run around a bit, and he's like, he's puffed out, and go, oh my God, I sound like, would have been awesome.
Yeah. But Tracy says she was disappointed one of the main characters didn't die. I did think to give the series some weight, they should have killed someone. Even the Mandalorian, it would have been ballsy, but I could have seen it happening.
Yeah, I mean, someone significant. Either I think Axe would have helped. The armor would have been an absolute ripper. All right, kill the armor. I would have thought that is awesome if they had done that, because it's someone you don't expect to cark it. But they would never get rid of Din. That's never going to happen. And so at least someone significant had to go. Even killing Ragnar would have helped, but nah, he hangs out until the end. So
I did think the armorer, when she's used her tools to fight people, have been great in previous episodes. In this episode, with them flying around and her swatting at them, I thought that was pretty pathetic too.
It's like treating them like flies, isn't it? They go, whack, there's a fly, there's a mosquito, there's a bee. Oh dear, very, very cool. And of course, the Praetorian Guards stick their noses in, right? Which is very good. Good to see these guys again. All right, now this is interesting, right? So the tension is ramped up when Grogu, and it's the first time this entire season he's been under threat. Okay, now the thing is, and I want to emphasize this, as I've said before, this show is focused for two audiences: the fans and the public. All right. Now, using a perfect example, my other half, Lynn, right, doesn't give a rat's ass about the Mandalorian stuff at all. It's like speaking French, right? Nothing. She just acknowledges that Grogu is the cutie pie. He's the cash cow. When this was going on and the Praetorian Guards are going after IG-12, she's screaming at the television, completely losing it. And I bet she wasn't the only one because the kid is under threat from these bad guys. And that's exactly what the show was intending to do. Make the kid, and nothing's going to happen to him, but make the kid frightened. And it worked to a charm. And it was like, okay, there's a bit of tension here, even though we know exactly how this is going to end. I don't know what it was like in your household, but here it was like, holy shit, woman, she's going right off the deep end. So there you go.
Here is, I spoke to you briefly about this. Here is the thing I think they should have done, because they introduced something a couple of episodes ago.
No, I'm going to get to it. You're jumping the gun. I will cover. I'm going to come to you in a sec. So just sit tight, because I've got to show the picture, and then you can talk about it. Okay, so No spoilers. Right, sit tight. All right. In fact, the very next picture is about it. So the key thing is that, like, when they're chasing Grogu around, it's like a bloody mouse chase, right? He's just jumping around here, there, and everywhere. And there was a really good missed opportunity for these guys. Sorry, I didn't realize I was going to come up next. So you explain what it is that you were talking about, which I thought was an ingenious idea. This is what they should have done.
Well, they introduced a couple of episodes ago that the armorer gave him this big disc thing that he's wearing around his neck, which is huge and oversized, and obviously is a plot point. And I thought what would have been cool, because it was a couple of episodes ago and most of the audience would have forgotten about it, is one of the guards traces him round as he's jumping and throws one of the force things at him, and looks like he's speared him and killed him. And then he does the Frodo from the Mines of Moria, where he pulls it back and he's got like that thing that's saved him, that huge Mr. T medallion of Beskar or whatever it is. But they didn't. I thought that was another wasted opportunity.
Yeah, and we did discuss this briefly in the store, and I thought that you're so clever because they've put that on for a purpose, right? This big, gigantic, friggin' like a dinner plate on his chest, and it would have made sense that served a purpose in the show. And most of the audience would have forgotten that it was there. It has the Mudhorn symbol on it or whatever. Yeah. And you needed Grogu to be not only under threat, but to actually physically be attacked or be impacted by something, by one of the weapons. And it just so happens that the thing saves it. And even though it's predictable and it's a common trope in a lot of movies, it still would have been good. And most of the audience wouldn't have picked up on it. They wouldn't have twigged that he had the disc on, especially if it knocks him over. And he's like, Grogu is like, shit, he's been injured. But he wakes up and, of course, he's got the thing. He's okay. And Tracy agrees with you on that one too. Yeah.
Have the Mandalorian open the door just to see the killing strike, and that's what motivates the Mandalorian to go sick and kill all the Praetorian guards. And then Grogu gets up and dusts himself off and is like, "What were you worried about?" or something like that.
Yeah. And another suggested, and I think it was you, when the door's shut, right, and Din's outside and he's freaking out. And like Grogu, we don't see what happens, but Grogu actually kills the guards, right? He has his dark side moment, and you hear all the bodies whacking the doors, and they open the doors later on. He just he's in there, he's just standing there, and the guys are killed. He's killed them. And of course, if you wanted to really push it adult, it'd be like broken limbs and really busted body parts. That'd be cool, but of course, they were never going to do that. So,
yeah. Yes. So, well, that would have been a good way to do it. Whether he kills them and you don't see it, just opens the door and you see them dead in the background. That's a PG way of doing it.
See, the thing, just taking it a step further again, right? If Grogu had have killed them off screen, so we didn't see it, we just hear what's happened. We're hearing all the yelling and screaming, right? You go, hang on, is he touching the dark side a little bit now? Is there a side to him that we don't know about? Or is there something that's been awakened in him? That would set off all the speculation for the future. Would have been awesome for the fans, but yeah, for the kids, they would have hated it because, as mentioned here, is the money bags. With that in mind, and I love the fact that, yes, he is, oh my God, was a Mortal Kombat? Finish him. Be rid of the cursed cash cow. But of course, mate, note to self: always bring a force wielder to a Praetorian guard.
Yeah. So I do think the whole thing with the Praetorian guards was cool, but I kind of thought that the troopers he already had, he probably didn't need them, and they didn't really help that much in the end, did they?
No, they didn't. Michael said, and this is what I've always said, focus on two audiences. That's why it's failed from a fan point of view. And I agree with you. There's a lot you could do to really get people discussing and go, oh, hang on, where are we going with this? At the moment, it's very cookie cutter, very easy to go from A to B. You know our heroes, and I've said this before in the previous seasons, when the heroes, they're not even going to get a drop of sweat on them, right? They're just going to get through without a problem whatsoever. And you don't want that. You want them to have to struggle a little bit. And and it's sad, but of course they're catering to a certain audience, and they're going to go, nope. It's almost like the Disney-fying it. Can't do that, which is there you go. Wasted opportunity to reference another Better Made classic. Yeah, exactly right. So anyway, not to worry. It is what it is. So all right. So this was interesting, right? So Gideon has grabbed the Darksaber in what's her name, Bo's hands, and crushed it. And I thought, the prop maker's going to love this one, the busted Darksaber, right? Even though it's meant to be made of Beskar. Right? Yeah. So theoretically, he shouldn't be able to crush it at all, but whatever. But did you pick up on the fact he beat Bo-Katan for the second time, which means the Darksaber is now his, which means he is actually the ruler of Mandalore again. Did you notice that?
I didn't. I did think after all this build up with the Darksaber, for him to just crush it was sort of an insult to the audience. But I didn't even think about that because they've played that card a couple of times this season now, so I thought doing it again would have been a bit wearing it out.
For sure, but it's legitimate though. They actually in
Yeah.
combat too, so it wasn't like he got handballed from her from like what Din did. He's actually
Yeah.
beaten her in combat. He can pick it up and go, "Yes, I'm now the Mandalore." That's the term they use, and I'm
Yeah.
in charge of the planet for a second time. So it's like, how good's that? And as was noted by I think Chad, which I thought was kind of cool, because he grabs her hand of the sabers in her hand, and because the thing's meant to be made of Beskar. When he crushes the saber, it should theoretically crush her hand as well,
Yeah.
like complete pulp, right? That would have been awesome, right? Like freaking, she's like completely disfigured it and smashed to pieces. Once again, you can't do that. So I was like, you need to do the Andor thing and just go a bit adult sometimes. How many missed opportunities we got so far? Seems to be lots of them. So
I think the disappointing thing about this is when we speculated last week about what was going to happen, we were actually way off, and then pretty much nothing that we speculated came about. But I actually think our version of this episode was better than what we got.
yeah, it's almost like if you could do a part a Mandalorian after midnight sort of show, and you do it a bit more adult, a bit more serious, a bit more thought out.
Yeah.
You could come up with a much better show. It would freak people out. Some people would be a bit upset by it. And maybe they go, oh, it's kind of heading in places I don't like. But it would be awesome. It's like what they do in a lot of the comics. They can do some really violent and difficult things in comics because it's just drawn. And even though it's not everybody's cup of tea, you got to give them A for effort for giving it a burl. And in this show, or this series, we kind of don't get that. But it's the nature of what it is. Destroying the Darksaber was silly. And the rules around it were weird and poorly explained. Well, yeah, to a degree. I totally agree with you. And what's interesting is that Bo, because, Gideon says the Darksaber's destroyed, you got no hope of progressing. And, of course, Bo says Mandalorians are stronger together. And, of course, the joke of that is they never stay together. That's it. They're always warring with each other. So why should things be any different? So you're right. You don't need the Darksaber. It's more of a symbol than anything else. But it doesn't help when you've got this in-factional fighting that's been going on probably for thousands of years. So... yes, not to worry. What do you reckon, dude?
Sorry. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. No worries. This looked good, right? I did like it. Big bada booms, right? The ship's coming down, right? Everybody's got to fly away. It was once again, as we've said before, the visual effects are outstanding, and I got to admit, this did look cool. This looked really, really groovy, absolutely spectacular. I like this, right? So Moff Gideon's employment in the Shadow Council, he's just been fired. Yeah, boom, tish. If he is a clone, then it won't really matter. Some people have said, well, he's wearing Beskar. Will he have survived? I don't know. Make it what you will. But the funny thing is, of course, you got the galaxy far, far away version of We Are Groot. But we have seen Grogu deflect fire before, and that was in the season 1 finale when he's saving Din. So, a little bit contrived, a little bit convenient, but...
Well, this was a forced bubble keeping them safe inside. And I do wonder if a capital ship came down like that, if the fire would... dissipate within a minute or two again. Remembering things like when we had 9/11 and the buildings went down, there were fires they couldn't put out for about 2 months after that happened.
Yeah, the damage would be pretty extensive, and you are right, it would leave a mark. Now, Greg has said, we promised, I like how we promised, we're not making the show, that Bo would ride the mythosaur, and you are right, it was kind of disappointing that she didn't, but I've got a theory about that now, right? So with the good thing about theories, you can update them accordingly. And so even though we're kind of incorrect on that one, there's another one I bet I am going to be correct on. So sit tight. It'll come up at the end. Regarding the visuals, like everyone busted up, right? This is Sundari. Always got Sundari. It still looks great. I love the visuals. I love it when they do big vista shots. It looks absolutely spectacular. Now, what is the deal with this? We get to see Ragnar. I keep saying Ragnar. It's Ragnar. Get re-anointed. Who cares? What's the deal with that? What a waste of time with this. Now, I know what they're trying to say. Oh, Ragnar's lost his dad, but he doesn't care. He's going to get his the water poured on his helmet. I thought this was a complete waste of time. What was the deal with this, dude?
I just think it was because all the other Mandalorians, I presume, were old enough to be anointed in the living water, but because he wasn't, they had to do the baptism again because he was just on a planet. From a story point of view, it just slowed the whole thing down. You could have just gone back there for the mythosaur tiny bit or whatever. I don't know. It was a weird scene to put in.
It was, and it's like we've been down this path already. It doesn't matter if it was which planet it was on. It was like, and they even said the same lines, the Creed over again. I was like, that is a waste of time. Grant said about having the mythosaur for the movie, probably right. Maybe they had to rewrite everything really quickly. They said, we've got a scene in the script. Bo runs off as I think you discussed a long time ago, and everybody thinks he's going to run off to surrender or hide or whatever. Oh, she's come back with the mythosaur, and they go, oh, no, we can't have that now. I know. We'll have the ship come down, and it blows up everything. It's all good. And maybe they had to rewrite it because Dave, I'm going to talk about Dave in a sec, wants his mythosaur for the film. You're probably right. However, I've still got theories about it, so sit tight. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is something I love the bit of. This is a Durr Fred moment, right? Grogu is now officially Din's kid. I was like, yeah, we kind of already knew that because he adopted him way back when. And he gets a new name, right? Now, I laughed when I saw this, right? Grogu now has a new name, and that can only mean one thing. Yes, more merchandise. Just repackage the existing boxes and warm up the cash registers. That cash cow just keeps on giving. Collect them all. How good was that, dude?
I got to tell you, they've cut through a lot of bureaucracy and red tape with adopting children in a galaxy far, far away, haven't they? You know, I've decided I'm going to adopt him as my son. Fair enough. So I did think that was a bit funny. I did think that we were going to get what I had predicted, and his first words were going to be, "This is the way," where they're saying he can't even talk and say the pledge. So I thought that was a wasted opportunity, but it is what it is.
So what do you reckon, dude? You reckon there's going to be 3 boxes of the same action figure now? Din Grogu?
Well, I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised they haven't cloned him, and there's a blue one and a red one, so you can pick whatever color you like.
Yeah, and I did have to restrain myself from not doing a 4th version that said Baby Yoda. I can't swear on the show like this. Now, Blake has said, Mando, you can't say Mando, it's Din, right? Get used to the fact he's got a name. Din adopts Grogu right in front of Ragnar, who's now fatherless. That would have worked if they had have shown Ragnar's reaction, and you don't, right? So if it was intended to be that way, where Ragnar is saying that, well, that's a bit stiff. I got no dad, but now this little green dude's got a dad. I get it. But they didn't show his reaction, and they needed to. And then you would have put 2 and 2 together, and you go, okay, now we feel for Ragnar. He looks completely normal. He just says his creed, gets the water on his head, world moves on. So if that was the intention, they've missed a bit somewhere. But if you picked up on it that way, interpreted that way, that's all good. So very good. And I think DJ said a similar thing. Maybe show that Ragnar getting his dad's armor, which we haven't seen, or even in his death, he's seeing his face with the. Yeah, well, we haven't seen any of that. So it was just a pointless scene in the grand scheme of things. So they missed a bit somewhere. Now, this is my theory. Okay, so we had our theory last week that Bo was going to be riding the mythosaur, and it kind of hasn't happened. Maybe it will happen in the movie, as Grant said. Maybe. But this is what I don't know if you've picked up on this, but the irony of this is interesting, right? Din, as in Din Grogu, I mean, that's just unbelievable. He's now effectively Mandalorian, right? So that would mean, because his lifespan goes for hundreds upon hundreds of years, that at some point, if probably in the very short future, he's going to become the Mandalore himself, which is he's the ruler of the entire planet. And he will be for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it wouldn't surprise me that if at some point Grogu, Din Grogu ends up riding the mythosaur in the future, not tomorrow, not next week, but maybe 40, 50 years, 100 years, 200 years from now. So, but imagine the human population, all these humans on Mandalore dealing with the fact that they're answering to this little green dude. What do you reckon?
Well, that's what the Jedi Council had to deal with, didn't they?
Well, true, but they're all full of aliens, right?
Yeah,
so, and of course, this is what I mentioned here. Like Grogu has a connection with the mythosaur, so clearly the mythosaur wasn't in a hurry to come up to the surface. So that's what I thought. Well, maybe Grogu ends up riding him in the future, distant future, whatever it is. But wouldn't that be weird? Where hundreds of years later, generations later, all these humans are being born on Mandalore, and they go, "Why are we in control by this little green dude? He's going to be around for hundreds and hundreds of years."
Yes. The judgment of Grogu. He can't even talk. You just go up to him. He's like, yes, 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 no, no, no.
Love it. Din Grogu is going to need a special. Yeah, we had a picture of it last week with the ears sticking out the side. I don't know how they're going to deal with that one. Very, very cool. I like this one. Still convinced we're going to see Ray Skywalker interacting with an older Grogu. Yeah, well, you never know. They could certainly do it. I mean, yeah, he's going to be leading this planet. Eventually, he will lead the planet, I think, for a long time ahead. So there you go. Din Grogu. Make of that what you will. All right, so the Great Forge is reignited. And I like the fact that when they applaud, they bang their gauntlets together. I reckon that's actually a really cool technique, actually.
So that's basically directly ripped off from the Desolation of Smaug, where the dwarves relight the Great Forge as well.
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, it's taken it straight out of The Hobbit. Love it. So, yeah, they were banging the things together. Okay, we can now make more Beskar bits and pieces. It's all good. The cities are still busted. It's like moving into a new flat, right? What's the first thing you do? Do you stick in the bread? Do you put in the fridge? Stuff that you turn on you put in the hi-fi system, turn the music up really loud. Don't worry about the other stuff.
You're exactly right. The first thing we'd do, my wife would turn the heater on.
Exactly. Glad they paid the gas bill. Wouldn't that be funny? They try to light the forge, and of course, it's just nothing
Didn't
lights.
work.
Like, did anybody turn the gas on? Yeah, good point. All right, this is interesting. Okay, so that's all the Mandalorian planet stuff out of the way. All right. So this is echoes, as I saw it, of the first season when Din walks into the bar by himself, right? Which I thought was kind of cool. So now it's Din and the other Din. Think of that what you will. Which I thought was kind of cool. Now. So it's a completely out of place scene in the rest of the episode when you sit and think about it, right? So at the Adelphi base, or they call it Adelphi. I love the fact you've still got Dave Filoni in the back there, probably talking about the new movie and what mythosaurs he's going to chuck in and why this episode is a bit trite, but make of that what you will. And of course, Din wants to become effectively a Ranger of the New Republic without being a Ranger of the New Republic. And this just jarred, dude. Where was this going?
There could be a new series, Din Din Rescue Rangers. But I thought it was a really weird way to end it. And the one thing I did call right at the beginning of the series is they would get another IG head to replace the chip.
Yeah, we're getting that. We're getting there. You're jumping ahead, son. So, yeah.
No problem. That's all I really had to say. I was disappointed that that squadron didn't come and help. I did think they were going to be involved in the space battle. So to bring them back into it at the end, it seemed pretty pointless.
It did. Now, it's a tale of two Dins, right? And I totally agree with you because when you sit and think about it, Din and Din, which sounds like a legal firm name, doesn't it, when you sit and think about it? So he wants, as in, it's going to be confusing. So technically, you've got to call both of them Din. Yeah. It's like Din Dins. It's like, I feel like something to eat right now. So he wants under-the-counter work from the New Republic. Why?
Because I think
he's already been given the place in Navarro to hang out and chill, and we said that at the end. Why does he need to do bounty hunter work?
Because I don't think he's asking for bounty hunter work. I think he's asking to help with the problems to clean up the last of the Empire and pirates and stuff like that. And it's a respectable way of doing it. I think it was him giving a nod to the Republic and saying that's what they'd rather be in, kind of thing. But I just thought it didn't really need to happen. I didn't think.
True. I like a DJ said, X-Wing pilots, they've got the budget. So Carson's got access to the till for hiring off the book bounty. That's a good point, actually. It's like, Carson may not have the authority to do that. So, and of course, if Carson is paying Din under the table, and if he gets found out, Carson gets into trouble and he gets the sack, and Din's going, mate, doesn't bother me. I'll just keep on going. So, good point, DJ. All right, so we love this. As you said, they find the IG-11, what's the IG head, right? Stick it on. Now, the first thing is, where did the body come from, right? Because we got the head from the bar. Where did the rest of the body come from? Is it IG-12 repurposed again? Is that the reason why you got this red box just there? That's where Grogu used to sit. Did they go back and reclaim it? Did it all get destroyed on the planet when it all got blown up? And, of course, the new Marshal, effectively, and I think you said this at the store, is like RoboCop. You just hope that he doesn't forget the 3 prime directives.
He even came out with the "to serve and protect" line, which I thought was quite funny. You are right. I think they've just cobbled together from the smashed parts and bits and pieces and the statue and the new head, a new one, which you understand in the first, how he had a rapport with the first IG-11, but this one is like an assassin droid. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting they did it. He is cool. I do like the IG units.
Yeah, and in fact, I don't know if they just called this one the Marshal. I don't think they actually gave him a name. Did they say IG-11?
I think they said IG. I think they said IG-12. I think he said this is IG-12, the new Marshal.
Oh, okay, I'm not entirely sure. The Babu Fricks guys built it. Yeah, maybe they did. So it's kind of convenient though that they bring back the head and they go, guys, can you build the entire body and give it programming and do it? It's like, if it was that easy to do that in the first place, why the hell all those episodes ago did we have that issue with Din saying, well, we need a memory part to get IG-11 doing what we wanted to do? They could have just done what they've done in the first place.
Yeah.
I know they needed the head, but it seems a bit simple. There you go. I like this from Tracy. He would prefer Din Grogu as an apprentice bludger. Well, it's kind of a bit like that, isn't it? Sit in front of their cabin, which is exactly what happens at the end of this. Now, I thought, you'd think after all this time he'd change clothes, put his slippers on, even take the helmet off. I mean, he's sitting there in the armor. It's like, Oh, freaking hell, dude.
I know. I hope it's it must be well ventilated. So
Yeah. I just that just didn't make a great deal of season. Although some people have said it actually mirrors a shot from an episode in season 1 when Din's like hanging out, thinking, "Oh, this is the way to go, chilling out
yeah.
and relaxing." And of course, we know he's not going to do that. He's going to be off doing other adventures. So, very good. Daniel's got it wrong. It's protect the innocent. Okay, serve the public trust and uphold the law. God, what kind of nerd are you, Daniel? Go back to Nerdo 101 basic school, sunshine. So. Yes.
So
And the fourth directive, of course, is classified. So there you go.
yeah. And I was waiting when they did that little zoom in that there would be a post-credit scene, but no, or at least have Grogu eat the frog. He didn't even get to eat the frog.
No, and it's a that's all, folks moment. And of course, yeah, does this mean it's the end of the season or the end of the series? With Filoni now putting the movies together, you would logically think the series had finished. There wouldn't be a need for a season 4. But who knows? I mean, the cash cow's got to hang on. Close enough. No, we don't deal with closeness. Either you're right or you're wrong, and you were wrong. So.
Do or do not. There is no try. So.
Thank you very much. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. Thank you, Yoda. Yes, it's an interesting one for sure. But yes, I don't know what the deal is with that. Maybe they are going to finish off the series, and I think that would be a good move because it's wrapped everything up nicely and it's all good to go. So.
Do you know what? I almost think to preserve the integrity of the Mandalorian, it should have just been 2 seasons, and they should have just called this Bo-Katan, and the Mandalorian appeared in it, kind of like Boba Fett. I didn't hate this series as a whole, but it wasn't as good as the last 2 series by a long shot. I didn't think.
Yep, totally agree. Now, DJ said there's a lot of text here. Final source series is all over the joint. We know all this. No filler episodes. Pull it together episodic and hopefully read it. Yeah. So whether there'll be a season 4 is anybody's guess. Make of that what you will.
Yeah.
All right. So now there are a couple of. There's always a quote I like to bring up regarding what fans thought. I did read a lot of the fans, their thoughts and opinions, and most of them were not positive, which I thought was surprising. Remember, this is the flagship show, but there was one quote that came up that summarized this episode, and it kind of worked for me, right? And this is not me. Someone else wrote this. It said, "Not fully satisfied, but it'll do." I thought, you can't get more simple than that, eh? So, yeah, very, very cool. And there's a couple of points I want to bring up. Now, one of them was mentioned by DJ way up in the earlier of this episode. I didn't put it on screen for a specific reason. So let's have a quick look at some of the things that kind of just didn't happen or did happen. So after being shafted for a while, Din finally got his show back because he clearly was the main dude for this episode. So he's almost like he's wrestled his show back. The Pershing subplot really didn't go anywhere at all. That was, so you can argue, this is what DJ mentioned earlier on in the chat, that wasn't really necessary. Seems like it wasn't. And of course, the Beskar metal found in the Lambda class shuttle. There's, oh my God, the Mandalorians have stolen Gideon. Went nowhere. Didn't amount to a single thing. I thought that was kind of disappointing. So,
well, it was because his troopers in Mandalorian got him back. The ones with the Beskar, I would presume.
Yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't mentioned anywhere. It wasn't covered off. But the final line, I thought this was really, really cool regarding the series and the season. And I thought this was absolutely ingenious. You can say the series was wrapped up in a nice little bow. Ah, how good is that?
Yeah, that's pretty apt, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. There you go. So now, funnily enough, Christy has joined us for our Crimson Yawns, and I'll put those on the screen in a sec. Before I get your thoughts about this particular episode, just got to do the obligatory thing. Just say remember, if you want to check out the local Sci-Fi Zone socials, make sure you go to Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and whatever. There's a show released last night, so you got to make sure you check out what's going on regarding other shows besides this one. And of course, for all of your Mandalorian / Star Wars needs, you've got to go to Aaron's store, Mr. Dude, for the last time this series or this season. Tell us about the shop.
We have too much stuff. Please come and buy stuff. I can't fit more in. We have everything from Death Troopers to Stormtroopers to Space Troopers to Clone Troopers. We've got a lot of troopers.
Very good. And of course, fans, it's very important to remember that if you're going to go and pay Aaron a visit, you've got to do it when he's ordered his lunch, his hot food, and keep him talking so it goes cold. So there you go. All right. So Christy finally joined us at the end, and she's just slipped in her Crimson Yawns. And believe it or not, she went for remember, the more yawns, the worse it was. The less yawns, the better it was. She went for the full 7 yawns, which is the equivalent of 3 out of 10. How about that? So, traveling over Victoria, episode 7 yawns for episode 5. Look forward to see you all again next season. So there you go, 3 out of 10. Oh, dude, what an absolute come down. So what do you reckon?
I don't know. I probably last episode was probably too promising and set me up for too much of. When I saw it, I was like, I really didn't like that. It's probably just a 5 out of 10, and probably the series for me is about a 5 out of 10.
It is disappointing to a large degree, and as we mentioned at the start, funnily enough, the season finale of Picard occurred as well, and Picard effectively has really blown this particular season out of the water in a lot of ways. And which is funny, a DJ just asked me that right then. Are we going to review Picard next? Yes, we are looking at doing it next week, but we'll cover that off later on. Yeah, it's for what was potentially built up. It seems to have all been like this episode. It was all rushed in, and it was kept very, very simple, very what's it called? Something that's on the surface. I can't think of the term. Superficial. That's it. And the depth has just been removed. And I think for the general public, they would have really dialed into it. I know some people who really liked the episode, they didn't have to think about it. And unfortunately, fans do think, and we do analyze, and we do study, and that can sometimes be to our detriment. But from last week's episode, which had such an awesome build up to this one, it kind of didn't really deliver the goods, and there was a lot of unhappy fans. So there you go.
Well, that's what I was saying right at the start of the episode, being in the shop. There's a lot of people who really didn't like it and thought it was a letdown, and a lot of people who really thought it was fantastic and were absolutely fine with it. And I guess for me, it's probably a split. The younger kids were the ones that liked it more, and the older fans not so much. And probably it was worse coming off of just seeing Andor, which was more adult series with a deeper plot. To go back to this was kind of a step down for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Anyway, look, it's over and done with now. Season 3 is finished, for better or worse. It is what it is. But yeah, I think it has definitely ranked the worst of the 3 seasons. There's no way I think the season finale for this was ever going to compete against the season finale of season 2. That's a tough ask to follow any day of the week, with Luke turning up and taking Grogu away and whatever else. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. So what happens now is anybody's guess. We shall have to wait and see. But that's the end of us talking about The Mandalorian, which is particularly cool. What do you reckon, dude?
Yep, it's been a ride, this series. There's been a lot of ups and downs. It's definitely been a lot more inconsistent than every other series.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And we've appreciated everybody joining us tonight and pasting their comments and having a chat about it. It's been absolutely fantastic. Anyway, we're out the door. We may be back next week to talk about Picard, just the one episode, and we'll see how it all goes. But in the interim, there you go. Run out and buy yourself some Din Grogus. Din and Din. Oh, there you go. How confusing is that going to be? Oh, what do you think of Din? Which Din? This Din or that Din? Unbelievable. Yeah. All right, guys, we'll leave it to a party hard rock on, and we'll see you around for the next Star Wars series, whatever that happens to be. Okay, then. Take care for now.
Have a good night, guys.